all of the technology is started. Okay, so I have a question for you. Has life turned out the way you wanted it to turn out? Is it everything you have wanted it to be and more? And I kind of chuckle there for a second because that question just makes me want to dive deeper within myself to know whether or not life has turned out exactly how I wanted it. The answer is no. There are people out there where things go wonderful. It's turned out exactly how they wanted it to turn out. But we all can admit there are things along the way in life that cause things not to turn out exactly how we expected it to, or how, like I'd like to say this, how it's supposed to. So, if you've been following my story, you know that I have multiple sclerosis. And with that chronic illness comes a lot of physical symptoms, comes a lot of mental health symptoms. How do you deal with that? So, anybody, whether they have a chronic illness or not, anyone could deal with depression. Okay. But when you have a chronic illness, and you're out of the workforce because you have a chronic illness, it's hard to figure out sometimes whether or not you're doing what is meant for you to do. How do you then find that new way of life? And if you do, or if you don't, what is to become of you? So, truth be told, I sit and go through the motions a lot. And in my day, a lot of those motions are um, wanting to fit in, and fit in means, as a friend used to say, fit in where you get in where you fit in. And whether or not that is trying to start a new business, or should I still have a car? Should I be out there in life doing what people do, which is they're social, they join groups, they're part of things. And when you have a chronic illness and you're home a lot because you're out of the workforce, which is one of the primary ways that people get to know other people, you meet people at work. There are a group of us who don't have that anymore. So I wanted to kind of talk about how you get through that and over that. So I put some notes up. Um, some of the things that you have to think about when you are not where you thought you would be in life, whether it's because you got hurt and you have to be at home all the time, whether or not you're diagnosed with something that makes you have to be at home all the time, whether you've lost your job and you're at home all the time. We tend to just go through the motions, which causes a bigger problem. So one of the things I want you to think about, I want you to think about what are, or what were your hopes and dreams? What were your wishes for where you would be? I have to think about that at times because sometimes I get in the rut of just going through the motions, or just being here, or just doing what everybody else wants me to do. But where is it that I want to be? What was it that I wanted to do? And I think back about being in college. What did I expect out of college? What was my major? What were the things that I enjoyed doing? For those of us who that was a long time ago, 25 years for me. I was about to say 30. It's 25 years ago for me. So I can think back to that time, but then I go further and say, what was my first job out of college? Where did I land? What did I want to become? And if I wanted to become, say, I ended up being a teacher. I ended up not following my dreams, but following what other people expected of me. So I did that back then. But I did that back then. But now I have to look at my situation. And instead of deciding or thinking that it's so horrible, look at all the time that I have on my hands now. So, what can I do with that time? I can either decide to always go through the motions, and there are days that you go through the motions because you're in pain. There are days you go through the motions because you just don't know what you want to do, or you end up watching TV. You heard the television come on, and you just get in that rigmarole. But if you think back to what were my hopes and dreams for my life, I became a teacher. I wasn't good at it, but then I became a trainer. So I'm an educator. And I did like educating, but I remember I used to want to get into television behind the scenes. When I was out of work for a little while, I actually joined a group of women who were putting on a play, and I got to be a part of that play. But I had to get out of the house in order to do that. We have to decide what it is we want to do. What are our hopes, wishes, and dreams? And then another good question to get you out of that constant, the consistency of not doing things, is to ask yourself, if I could do anything, if you could do anything, and if you're in a particular situation, you can. I have multiple sclerosis. The symptoms and the flare ups come and go. They're not always the same. So there are days that I have better days than the days that I might have mobility issues. So if I could do anything, what would I do? I see myself going to the hospital and volunteering. I see myself going to work with kids in schools, and it's a little more difficult now to work with kids in schools because of all the security issues. But there are some workarounds. There are some things that you can do. I can go to church. I can help when they need people to babysit the kids. Um, there are ways to think outside of the box. The other question that it's not really a question, but the other thing that you have to get past and get over is the guilt and the shame that we sometimes have for ourselves. Look, mental health is a serious thing, and it's hard enough without us putting ourselves down, thinking, what am I here for? Or what do I do all day? Or the guilt of I'm not making the type of living that I would have expected me to be making in my 40s. Things aren't always going to turn out exactly how we think they should turn out. But you have to turn it around. And you have to make a decision of whether or not you're going to let life deal you the deck of cards and you're just going to play them, or are you going to play the full game? Play the full game. Don't just take what's being dealt to you. Stick it out through the whole game. See where life can take you. See what you can do anew. A lot of people don't get the same opportunity. And I know it's crazy for me to even think of it or say that this is an opportunity, but people don't always get that chance to start with a new slate. So some of the strategies and things I do, depending on where I am at, whether or not I'm stuck, whether or not I'm going through the motions, is I like to pay attention to quotes on TVs, on the television, on shows. So I think it's a big deal. The writers are a huge deal for me. I think they do a wonderful job, depending, not even depending on the show you're watching, but depending on what shows you like to watch. I see Rebecca's on. Hey, Rebecca. Hey, Stanley. But I watch some shows and I am very intentional about picking out quotes that move me. I literally write them down and I think about why it moved me, why it even gave me an aha, why I even thought about it. Because there needs to be something more to just me laying here watching TV. But it gets to be hard. It gets to be hard when you are just going through the motions. So I'm very intentional about the things that I do when I'm going through the emotions. I have started my own company and I'm working on things that I can do to help other people who are in the same situation, whether it's with mental health or whether it is with a chronic illness. There are things that we need to do when we're just sitting in the same old, same old. And I promise you, it gets easier if you let it get easier. Because there has to be a point in time when we realize that the decision is ours to make. And we've been given this new slate. We need to decide what we're going to do with it. So, again, think back to your hopes, dreams, and your wishes. Number two, if you could do anything, and depending on where your chronic illness has you and what it has you going through, you might have a brand new slate, a clean slate. And then number three, don't shame yourself. Don't put yourself through the guilt of, why am I here? I'm not doing anything. What is my purpose for? You are here. You're here. Decide what it is that you're going to do and make something of it. You have an opportunity that not a lot of people get. A lot of people don't get a second chance or the ability to have. I mean, I have my full 16 hours of the day. What am I going to do with it? I have to decide. So I hope you guys have an awesome day. Bye.